The year is 1990. Big shifts are happening in the gaming industry. The arcade giants of the past are slowly fading, making way for the console contenders that promise stellar graphics from the comfort of your own home. A new golden age of gaming has begun, and the walls around where and when gaming can happen are breaking down. But war is brewing on the horizon. These are the top 40 best-selling video games of 1990. Number 40, Sword of Vermilion. Sword of Vermilion is an action RPG about Prince Eric, who is on a quest to avenge his father across a sprawling world with 14 regions. It mixes first-person dungeon crawling with top-down exploration and real-time combat. Its large scope, musical score, and hybrid perspectives make the game a worthy pioneer for RPGs on the Genesis. Number 39, Ghouls and Ghosts. An arcade conversion from the 1988 hit of the same name, Ghouls and Ghosts is a brutal side-scrolling action platformer where the player assumes the role of Arthur, a knight battling through 5 gothic stages to save Princess Prin Prin from Lucifer and his legion of demons. Unique features include interesting weapons like holy water, as well as a double jump to aid dodging. Arthur, who is remembered for losing his armor and running around in his underwear when injured, would make his return the following year in Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Number 38, Bonk's Adventure. The one and only TurboGrafx-16 title on this list, Bonk's Adventure stars caveman Bonk, who uses his giant head to bash dinosaurs and save Princess Za from King Drool. In this side-scrolling platformer, you headbutt, flip, and climb your way as you collect fruits and meat for power-ups. Bonk was the TurboGrafx's mascot title and Hudson Soft's answer to Nintendo's Mario. An anime tie-in was even originally planned, but eventually cut. Number 37, Batman. Based on the 1989 film, this side-scrolling action platformer follows Batman through the streets of Gotham as he tries to stop the villain Joker. Batman's Batarang and Grapple Hook offered a lot of platforming combat variety. Although developer Sunsoft reused the NES Batman game engine, the visuals of the Genesis and popularity of the movie made this a must-play for fans. Number 36, Prince of Persia. As more and more families started to invest in home computers, PC gaming really started to take off in the late 80s and early 90s. While it released in 1989, the realistic animations and combat of Prince of Persia ensured that strong sales continued well into the following year. The lifelike movement of the player character in this cinematic platformer was created using rotoscoping, which is an animation technique where animators trace over filmed footage. The designer of the game, Jordan Mechner, actually filmed his own brother for the animations. Number 35, Loom. A very popular genre in the early 90s on the PC was the point-and-click adventure game, as perfected, according to many, by LucasArts. Loom is one such game, where you play as Bobbin Threadbare, a young weaver on a mission to save his guild and prevent the world from descending into chaos. Instead of traditional inventory-based puzzles, the game uses a musical spell system, with Bobbin wielding a magical staff that casts spells by playing sequences of 4 musical notes. The game's blend of music, story, and accessibility to newcomers set it apart in the genre, and its emotional depth captivated audiences. Number 34, Joe Montana Football. Believe it or not, only 2 sports games appear on the top 40 list for 1990, both of which are football games. See if you can guess the other one, which comes in a little later on. Joe Montana Football lets you pick from 16 unlicensed NFL teams. In other words, you could be San Francisco, but not the 49ers, for both single games and tournaments. Gameplay is fast-paced, and the game lets you call offensive plays and defensive strategies while controlling key players like the quarterback. Joe Montana Football favored action over depth, with easy-to-learn controls and fun split-screen multiplayer fueling sales. Number 33, Phantasy Star II. Phantasy Star II is the sequel to the Sega Master System's Phantasy Star, which was a landmark game and one of the first JRPGs to ever come to the West, spawning a small fan base of story-hungry North Americans and Europeans that would only grow in the decades ahead. Explore towns, dungeons, and overworlds in a sci-fi setting as Agent Rolf and his team, while you investigate the Mother Brain supercomputer's failure on planet Mota. The gripping story, with multiple endings and surprise twists, hit many gamers emotionally, while two-player co-op encouraged social play. Sega marketed this one as an RPG for the 90s, and it definitely delivered. Number 32, ActRaiser. A major shift was happening in the console scene in 1990. While the Genesis had recently come onto the scene and given Nintendo a serious run for its money, the console war of the 90s was just getting started with the release of the Super Nintendo in Japan in the latter part of the year. While the North American launch wouldn't come until 1991, several iconic games released alongside the Japanese version, one of which was ActRaiser. The game sold fairly well in Japan and would go on to continue selling well in the following year after being released worldwide. ActRaiser uniquely blends action platforming and city building, casting players as the Master, a god awakening to reclaim the world from demons. The game is split into two phases: action stages, which are hack-and-slash adventures through forests and deserts, and simulation stages, a top-down mode where you guide villagers to build towns, similar to a pared-back version of SimCity. Speaking of which, number 31, SimCity. SimCity puts the player in the role of mayor of their own small village, tasked with growing it year by year until you achieve the vaunted status of megalopolis. Players must manage zoning, taxes, pollution, crime, natural disasters, and more in this early sandbox title. Innovative mechanics mixed with a strong niche demand for simulation games on the PC in the early 90s contributed to the game's success, and real urban planners have even credited the game's influence on their careers. SimCity would go on to be re-released for the Super Nintendo in the following year. A lot of research effort and time go into videos like these, so if you'd like to see more in this series, please consider liking this video and subscribing. And now back to the list. Number 30, Castlevania III. This cult favorite, released in 1989, continued its decent but somewhat disappointing sales into the early 90s, following up on the poorly received sequel to the classic 1986 Castlevania. Following the story of Trevor Belmont, an ancestor of the original game's Simon Belmont, as he storms Dracula's castle, Castlevania III was a return to form with a renewed focus on the action platforming gameplay that made the original a hit. While the first game actually outperformed this third entry in the series commercially, this one is nonetheless often viewed by series fans as the superior game, and it set up the franchise for a long and successful run that continues to this day. Number 29, Digital Devil Story, Megami Tensei II. Megami Tensei II is a first-person dungeon crawler RPG set in post-apocalyptic Tokyo, where you play as a demon summoner exploring ruins, battling gods, and negotiating with demons to recruit them. Depending on your alignment, law, chaos, or neutral, there were multiple endings available, adding significant replayability. Other unique features included the fusion system to mix demons together, and Tsukasa Masuko's eerie score, which fully maxed out the NES's audio capabilities. Given the religious themes and bleak tone, this early entry in what would become a very popular series only released in Japan, somewhat limiting its reach. Number 28, Commander Keen. The first entry in what would become a trilogy, Commander Keen, Marooned on Mars, is a side-scrolling platformer where 8-year-old Billy Blaze crash lands on Mars to thwart Vorticon invaders who are stealing his ship's parts. The smooth scrolling on this PC game, which rivaled the fluidity of the NES, made it a popular platforming choice. Commander Keen's success launched the studio id Software, a mainstay of PC gaming in the 90s with hugely influential titles like Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake. Number 27, Columns. Columns is a match 3 puzzle game that shifted strategies compared to the classic Tetris-style games that popularized the genre, changing things up by favoring diagonal plays. Genesis graphics gave the Ghouls a 3D sheen, with soothing Greco-Roman backdrops and a hypnotic music loop adding to the chill but sometimes chaotic gameplay. A version of the Genesis came bundled with Columns, helping drive sales numbers. Number 26, John Madden Football. Like Joe Montana football, in John Madden football, you pick from a number of unlicensed NFL team cities and play as them over a single game or whole season. The game birthed a very successful dynasty that would define football sims over the next 35 years, blowing away peers such as Joe Montana and Tecmo Bowl, with unique features such as Madden's narration. Via text for now, actual voice commentary wouldn't come until Madden Football 92 released 1 year later. The game also had superior UI and playbooks with over 50 real strategies. Football's US craze and Madden's star power were major sales drivers, while the two-player mode fueled couch rivalries among friends and siblings. Number 25. Railroad Tycoon. Railroad Tycoon is a business sim where players build a railroad empire. Starting out with a small amount of seed capital, players lay tracks, buy locomotives, set routes, and haul goods between cities across the US, Britain, or Europe in the late 19th century. The game was created by Sid Meier, and strategy fans loved its complexity, balancing routes, cash, and rivals, while history buffs were fascinated by the historically accurate trains. Railroad Tycoon was a perfect fit for the PC gamer crowd and would solidify Meier as a successful developer, paving the way for a little game you might have heard of the following year by the name of Civilization. Number 24. Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light. The very first in what would eventually become a hugely popular and beloved series of games, 1990's Fire Emblem really kicked off the entire tactical RPG genre. While it's true that it wasn't the first, Fire Emblem was the game that put this genre on the map, at least in Japan. That's right, despite spawning a successful series of over 20 games and influencing classics like Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics, the first Fire Emblem only released in Japan. Despite this, and despite a relatively slow start early in the year due to poor critic scores, the game built a following due to popular support and word of mouth. The game's difficulty and emotional stakes built a loyal fan base. Permadeath forced careful planning and emotional investment in characters like Knight Cain. Gameplay depth rewarded strategic thinkers and attracted especially cerebral gamers. Number 23. Metroid. With a massive 5 million copies sold, to this day the original Metroid remains the top-selling game in the series it spawned. Pretty impressive feat for a game that released all the way back in 1986. The game tells the story of bounty hunter Samus Aran. Spoiler alert, she turns out to be a girl, who lands on an alien planet to stop space pirates from harvesting energy-draining jellyfish called Metroids in their quest for galactic conquest. A side-scrolling game where Samus shoots with her arm cannon, morphs into a ball, and makes use of various power-ups, gamers love the challenging gameplay, non-linear world, and of course the iconic protagonist. Number 22. The Secret of Monkey Island. Join Guybrush Threepwood, a wannabe pirate, as he explores Melee Island to foil the pirate ghost LeChuck. Widely regarded as the absolute peak of LucasArts point-and-click adventure games, this title is celebrated for its humor, memorable characters, and innovative design. It remains a benchmark for the genre and has a lasting legacy, bolstered by a 2009 remastered version. According to Tim Schafer, he and co-designer Dave Grossman penned much of the game's signature quips during late-night pizza sessions, not knowing perhaps the timeless and hilarious classic they were writing together. Number 21. Snake's Revenge. Snake's Revenge is a divisive entry in the long-lasting Metal Gear series. The series creator, Hideo Kojima, famously disowned it, favoring Metal Gear II, which he developed for release in the same year. As a result, there were effectively two different Metal Gear sequels released at the same time, with Snake's Revenge exclusive to North America and Europe, while Metal Gear II came out only in Japan. Still, Snake's Revenge kept the series alive in the West, with Konami's strong brand helping to drive sales and leading to many sequels that continue to be released to this day. Number 20. Strider. The year is 2048, and the Soviet Union region of Kazakhstan is patrolled by a high-tech ninja named Hiryu, who is hunting the despot Grandmaster Mayo. A side-scrolling action platformer that was originally on arcade, Strider has you slash with your plasma cipher, climb walls, and flip over foes such as Soviet mechs. Following 1987's Shinobi, fans of the niche samurai genre found a lot to like about this moment-in-time game on the Genesis. Number 19. Pilotwings. Pilotwings is a flight simulator where players train as pilots, mastering light planes, hang gliders, skydiving, and jetpacks by flying through rings, landing on runways, and hitting thermal updrafts, all to earn enough points to pass each lesson and move on to the next. The game showed off the Super Nintendo's power in a serious way, with its faux 3D utilizing the system's famous Mode 7. Released in the waning days of 1990 in Japan, the game would go on to do well in the following year. Number 18. The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda released in 1986 and immediately changed the world of gaming. The story-driven, top-down adventure RPG about the young adventurer Link and his quest to awaken Princess Zelda from the pig demon Ganon's curse wowed critics and gamers alike. The unprecedented non-linearity, item progression, secret caves, and even a remixed, more challenging version that unlocks when you beat the game all added a ton of replayability to this classic, with so much to explore and discover. Selling almost 7 million copies over its total run, the game was still doing respectable numbers into the new decade. Number 17. Castle of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse chases the witch Mizrabel through 5 enchanted realms as he tries to save Minnie in this platformer on the Genesis. Featuring whimsical level design, animation polish that only Disney in the 90s could provide, and surprisingly challenging gameplay that will sometimes test even seasoned gamers' timing, fans rushed to buy the Mickey tie-in, making it one of the best-selling games on Sega's console for the year. Number 16. Golden Axe. Golden Axe became popular in the late 80s as an arcade hit, with the home console port for the Genesis also doing fairly well. Unlike most beat-em-up games of the era, which took place in gritty urban streets, Golden Axe offered a medieval fantasy world filled with swords, sorcery, and mythical creatures. This fresh setting appealed to fans of fantasy stories and movies, making the game stand out in what was then a fairly crowded genre. The game also supported 2-player co-op, so many gamers enjoyed playing with a friend or sibling, each selecting one of the 3 diverse characters with unique abilities. Golden Axe is unfortunately the final Genesis game on the 1990 list, but don't worry because next year a certain spiky blue mammal is waiting in the wings, ready to shake things up for next year. Number 15. Super Mario Bros. 2. The well-known backstory of how Super Mario Bros. 2, by far the strangest Mario game of its time, came to be goes something like this. A real sequel to Super Mario Bros. Was created by Nintendo and released in Japan, but it was decided that the game was just too hard for American audiences, so another game called Doki Doki Panic was reskinned with Mario characters for release in the West. It seems like the suits were right this time, because players loved the reskinned version so much that it was even eventually re-released in Japan as Super Mario USA. This entry brought several interesting innovations to the series, such as being able to choose from 4 different characters and tackling a variety of bosses. Number 14. Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. After the events of Zelda, Link, now 16 years old, seeks out 6 crystals to wake another sleeping Zelda, this time in the past. In a radical departure from the original, Zelda 2 is a side-scroller, with overworld ambushes triggering battles where you fight with your trusty sword as well as spells. Despite the polarizing nature of some of the changes, the game continued to sell well into the early 90s, bolstered by continued fan enthusiasm for the characters and world of Hyrule. Number 13. Wing Commander. Wing Commander is the only PC game to make it into the top 15 in 1990, but it definitely earns its place, with its in-depth story and complex 3D space simulation wowing early PC gamers. In Wing Commander, you're a rookie pilot that joins the Terran Confederation to repel the Kilrathi, a warlike feline race in the Vega sector. Missions range from escorting freighters to dogfighting with enemy aces, with wins and losses resulting in a branching campaign that ends in either a climactic strike or desperate evacuation, depending on earlier outcomes. creator Chris Roberts famously went on to launch the very successful and controversial Kickstarter campaign and perpetually early access game Star Citizen. Number 12. Mega Man 3. Mega Man 3 is the third entry in the successful Mega Man franchise, a side-scrolling action platformer where Mega Man shoots his Mega Buster and absorbs boss weapons after defeating them. In this edition, Mega Man faces off against 8 robot masters like Snake Man and Magnet Man, as well as his enigmatic brother Proto Man, and of course the Mad Dr. Wily. Another boss, a glue-themed one called Bond Man, was originally planned but cut for time. The Mega Man series would go on to have 8 more entries after this one, eventually ending in 2018, at least for now. Number 11. F-Zero. One of 2 launch titles for the Super Nintendo in Japan, F-Zero was a fast-paced racing game where players pilot one of 4 crafts across 15 tracks, with speeds topping 400 kilometers an hour. Hit mines or walls and your power will dip. Deplete your power completely and you will explode. Flashy visuals, Mode 7 magic, and thrilling speed made this a must-have for Super Nintendo early adopters. F-Zero was re-released for the Nintendo Switch in 2023 as a 99-player multiplayer bonanza, and I was as bad at it then as I was in the 90s. Number 10. Final Fantasy III. Final Fantasy III tells the story of 4 orphans who gained the Light Crystal's power to stop the evil sorcerer Xandi from flooding the world with darkness. A turn-based RPG with overworld exploration, airship travel, and dungeon dives, FF3 is the epitome of classic Japanese titles in this genre. And unfortunately for Western gamers, a Japanese title it would remain until all the way in 2006 when a 3D remake officially localized it for the first time. But despite a Japan-only release, fans loved it, and some critics even compared it favorably to the behemoth Dragon Quest IV. All of this was enough to push the game into the top 10 for the year. Number 9. DuckTales. DuckTales came out for the NES in 1989, with a Game Boy version coming out the following year. The platformer was a surprise hit, not only with Disney fans, but with all gamers, and was praised for its skill-testing gameplay and good design. The story is about Scrooge McDuck, a lovable yet irredeemably selfish millionaire and his quest for further riches. Mega Man fans might be interested to know that many of the same people who worked on that series were also involved in DuckTales, such as producer Takuro Fujiwara and character designer Keiji Inafune. A well-received remaster was released on multiple platforms in 2013. Number 8. Super Mario World. Following the events of Super Mario Bros. 3, and don't worry, we'll get to that one, Mario, Luigi, and Peach are vacationing in Dinosaur Land, only for Bowser to kidnap Peach once again and enslave the Yoshis, who were new dinosaur allies with unique powers. New power-ups like the Cape Feather were added, new mechanics like spin jumps, secret exits for levels, and even a save feature allowing players to finally be able to turn off their systems for once without losing progress. All of this paired with a vibrant, polished visual upgrade, and it made Super Mario World a huge leap forward compared to the NES entries in the series. The game was bundled with the Super Nintendo, which wouldn't release outside of Japan until 1991, so Super Mario World will have to wait until next year to really shine. Number 7. Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. Is about a plumber named Mario and his trek across the Mushroom Kingdom to rescue Princess Peach from the evil Bowser. Widely regarded as one of the greatest platformers of all time, Super Mario Bros. Continues to thrill new generations of gamers to this day, from kids just getting into gaming for the first time, to retro enthusiasts, to speedrunners. Bundled with the NES console since 1985, the game's 1990 sales persisted as new adopters of the system continued to join, eventually pushing lifetime sales totals past a whopping 40 million copies. Fun fact, the iconic Mario theme song that you've probably been humming since this one appeared on the screen was composed in a single day by Koji Kondo, inspired by a walk through the city of Kyoto. Number 6. Dr. Mario. Don your lab coat as Mario and combat a viral outbreak in a bottle by dropping red, yellow, and blue pills. In other words, a Tetris-like game, but with Mario, and he's a doctor for some reason. Despite the bizarre concept, Gamers swallowed it up like so many colorful medicine capsules. The adjustable difficulty settings, alternating chill and fever tracks syncing with gameplay tempo, and added charm of the goofy little viruses helped push this one near the top of the charts. Sales were mostly driven by the Game Boy version, but the home console edition was no slouch either. Ultimately, however, Dr. Mario could never match the juggernaut that was its Russian counterpart. Number 5. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Control the 4 Ninja Turtles, Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael, as you take on the Evil Foot Clan to rescue April O'Neil and defeat Shredder in this action platformer. Fans of the 1980s animated series love the ability to switch between the 4 turtles, and you could even drive the party wagon in some levels. Fans had mixed feelings about minigames like the Dam level, a section of the game that would become infamous due to complaints about the extreme difficulty. Despite this, and mixed reviews overall, the game sold well, riding a wave of Turtles' popularity as an IP. Number 4. Dragon Quest IV. Spanning 6 complete chapters, Dragon Quest IV, or Dragon Warrior 4 as it was eventually called in North America, follows 5 heroes destined to unite in their fight against a demon lord who seeks humanity's annihilation. A classic turn-based JRPG in the most iconic series of that genre, the game exploded onto the scene in Japan, selling over 1 million copies in just one day. The groundbreaking storytelling structure, massive hype and marketing campaign, and overall cultural significance of the franchise made the launch a major event. In fact, as the story goes, Dragon Quest launches were such a big deal that after the Wednesday launch of Dragon Quest III 2 years earlier, when hundreds of students and adults skipped school or work, the launch for number 4 in the series had to be scheduled for a Sunday. The game wouldn't be released in the West until 1992, where it did not enjoy the same level of success as it did in Japan. Number 3. Super Mario Land. Nintendo is right out of the gate with the first ever platformer for the Game Boy, featuring none other than their famous mascot Mario himself. A launch title for the system when it was released in 1989, Super Mario Land follows Mario on a mission to save Princess Princess Daisy, from the alien Tatanga in the kingdom of Sarasa Land. That's right, this was the first ever game to feature Princess Daisy, but more importantly, the game proved Mario's viability on the Game Boy, and by extension the entire platforming genres. The game sold well, helped out by sometimes being bundled with the Game Boy itself, especially in Europe, and by the handheld's success overall, though most give the main credit for that to the system's so-called killer app, which was, of course, Number 2. Tetris. Tetris was the handheld game that took the world by storm and really started the handheld industry in a lot of ways. The addictive core gameplay, catchy music, and bundling with the system made this one of Nintendo's best-selling games not just in the year it launched, but in every year for the next half a decade. But did you know the game was close to never being bundled with a Game Boy at all? Initially developed in 1984 by Alexei Pajitnov while he was working for the Soviet government, the USSR's export agency initially licensed Tetris to the two companies Mirrorsoft and Spectrum Holobyte, which in turn sub-licensed the game to Atari and Nintendo, causing serious confusion over who actually had the rights and on which platforms. While Atari released a version for the NES, Nintendo was planning to bundle the game with the Game Boy, and was readying to deploy their own NES version. A court battle ensued, which Nintendo eventually won, with the judge deciding that Atari's rights only applied to computer systems, not consoles or handhelds. So the Atari NES version was yanked from the shelves and replaced by the officially licensed Nintendo copy. The Game Boy bundle went ahead as planned, and the rest was history. You can still find copies of the original Atari version, and since only around 100,000 copies were ever sold, they've become a collector's item for those interested in this interesting chapter of gaming history. Number 1. Super Mario Bros. 3. Stop me if you've heard this one. Super Mario Bros. 3 is about a plumber named Mario and his trek across the Mushroom Kingdom to rescue Princess Peach from the evil Bowser. But this time, for the first time ever, you control him on a massive, navigable overworld with branching paths, secret exits, and minigames like card matching for 1-ups or the classic Toad slot machines for power-ups. Super Mario Bros. 3 took the Mario Bros. Formula and added so much more, with new power-ups like the Super Leaf, Hammer Suit, and Tanuki Suit, and even a competitive 2-player minigame based on the original Mario Bros. Arcade game. Released in 1988 in Japan and 1990 in North America, Super Mario Bros. 3 is largely considered Shigeru Miyamoto's NES magnum opus. The game was a smash hit around the world, bolstered slightly by its appearance in the 1989 movie The Wizard, and remains to this day the pinnacle of Mario platformers according to many longtime fans. That was the top 40 best-selling video games of 1990. Next up, 1991, when competition starts to heat up as two dominant players vie for supremacy. It's going to be a good decade.